An everlasting covenant. We are starting to look at the covenant that God made with Abraham this week. There are many sides and multiple angles to it, so it will take few weeks to cover it. After the flood and the salvation of Noah and his family, the world got a reset, but sin was still there and ready to devastate. It quickly developed and infested the earth. The knowledge about God was lost, and there was no path for hope to reestablish the connection and relationship with God. But one heart was still open for that. Even though he didn't know God, even though his roots and his future were in the lands of the Chaldeans in Ur, Abram was open when he got the call. Why would he do that? What did God offer to him? Why did he trust? There is so much here, and this week's study looks at the identification of the parties that are involved in this upcoming agreement or covenant. Then it identifies some stages on how it develops, and at the end it looks at some obligations. When introducing himself to Abram, God used a name. Names are important. Today it's modern to use weird names. We also risk to profile people based on their names, but especially certain names, like those of people who did prominent things, for example, they do bring certain associations. So at first, God identified himself as Yahweh, meaning the eternal one, the self-existing one, the self-sufficient one. God as the source of life. I am who I am, God said. He is not framed by our notions of past, present, and future. When calling Abram to leave everything behind and to follow him, this is the name that God used. When Abram was 99 years old, God came to him with a staggering promise that he would become a father at this age. This time he identified himself as El Shaddai, the Almighty One, the God who can, the God who is capable to do unbelievable things. In ancient cultures, names meant a lot. They were important. They signified an intent. They reflected experiences. And sometimes they were also changed with a significant change in the person's life. So, in addition to the names that God used to identify himself in this new relationship with Abram, whose name meant Father is exalted, God changed his name to Abraham, meaning Father of multitudes, to better reflect the promise in this new covenant established between them. The covenant between God and Abraham didn't happen at once. It developed through the years and through experiences. First was when God asked Abraham to leave everything and to follow him. Then in Genesis chapter 15, we have this weird experience where God reinforces his commitment, but to a question from Abraham, he performs a ritual where animals' halves are put aside and he passes in between, signifying that the promise has boundaries. Then the third stage was when God promised a son, the change of Abraham's name, and the reference to fathering many nations, a promise that is extended to all of us today, to those that are expressing the faith that Abraham had. The last part of the lesson focuses on the obligations in the covenant. God's promises are made up front, with no conditions, and are extended by grace. But the fulfillment of these promises depend on the relationship, They can be fulfilled only in the context of the relationship, which requires trust and obedience from our part. If we break apart, we break the covenant and the promises can't be fulfilled. The study will continue looking into this covenant next week with the lesson Children of the Promise.